Well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to today's virtual plant clinic. My name is Bill Lester. I'm with University of Florida IFAS Extension in Hernando County. And today with me once again is my co-host, Lilly. Good morning, Lilly. How are you?
Good morning, Bill. How are you?
I'm very good. I just want to mention to everybody that my internet's been a little twitchy this morning. So if all of a sudden I freeze up, it's just the internet. It'll clear up in a moment. I guess all of us are having internet problems because there's just so many people on it between
Yeah,
all the school children and us and everybody.
it's overloaded. Yeah.
I think so, yeah. So good morning, everybody. I have a whole bunch of different pictures and questions and everything else to go over here today before we kick it open for just general questions in a little bit. Thank you so much to everybody who's emailed me pictures and questions, things that we could share with everybody, because chances are when somebody has a problem with the plant, what's going to happen is everybody has the same type of problem in their yard. So that's really great that if you have an unusual problem or a question, you email it to me, and then I can go ahead and throw it in a PowerPoint and share it with everybody. And then that way everybody kind of learns from the answer. So let me go ahead and go into screen sharing here and see if it's going to work. Okay, so we go to, there we go. This week's updates. I believe today is May 7th. I think I'm correct. Got the day right? So
Yeah.
I got a couple.
It is
Am I correct, Lilly?
Yes. I had to look at my computer. Yes, it is.
Okay, yeah, I got my day correct. So last week I got a couple pictures after last week's sessions from Feline Fanatic 44 about some problems she's having with an avocado tree and guava. So this looks like a picture from the avocado tree. Now keep in mind, avocado trees can grow here in Central Florida, Hernando County, but they do a lot better down in South Florida. We do have a large commercial avocado industry. If any of you have ever been down to Homestead or Miami, they grow avocados down there. The trees grow like weeds. They have a big commercial industry. So avocados can grow this far north, but they have a lot of problems, especially in the winter. So if we have a really bad freeze, they're going to get damaged to a certain extent. And what happens with avocados and also guavas, all depending on what variety of guava it is, if it's the kind that grow in South Florida commercially, that does not like the cold weather. So what happens is in the winter, they get really unhappy. They go quiescent, which just means that they go to sleep, they start resting, they don't grow. And then in the spring, they have to kind of wake back up. If your tree has a lot of freeze damage, it's going to have to be pruned off. And then the tree starts to grow again. They do really well here during the summer. They love the heat and humidity and the rain. That's just great for them. The problem is in the winter, it really knocks them back here a lot. So here's a picture from the avocado tree, it looks like, and there's a lot of leaf damage here. The leaves have probably been fed on by, I think she emailed me also that she found caterpillars on it. So there are caterpillars that feed on avocado trees. Beetles, a lot of this leaf damage here looks a little old though, so it's not really recent. Here's another picture, and this looks like it's from the avocado also. And the dark markings on the leaves, my guess is a fungal disease called Cercospora. And that's pretty easy to pick because the leaf spots and markings that it makes are purplish. And this looks a little purplish reddish, so probably Cercospora. But it doesn't really matter. It's a fungus, and it's probably going to need to be sprayed with a fungicide either once or on a regular basis as we go into the summer. So here's a picture, and this is probably the guava tree here, and it doesn't look really great. So what's going to happen is hopefully either now or very, very soon, if the tree is alive or any of the branches are alive, they're going to start to sprout new leaves, start to grow. You need to look very, very carefully and figure out if there are any totally dead branches on that tree and totally trim them off. because dead branches don't come back to life. They never get better. You need to remove them until you're left with the live branches, and hopefully they're going to resprout some new leaves and some new growth. So I'd say continue with good care, regular watering. If it's in a container, and it's a little hard to see from the picture if it's in the container or in the ground, but what you're going to want to do is continue, proper watering, fertilizing, and hopefully it's going to sprout back some. And there we go. Got a little hung up on the PowerPoint. That looks like some more leaves off the avocado, and you see some of those holes in it. That could be a touch of fungus. That could be a random beetle that's been feeding on the leaves. If you start to notice holes like this on a leaf, you need to turn the leaf over and look very carefully to see if there's caterpillars present or beetles, and then we can tell you how to deal with them. But that's about all I could say for the avocados and the guavas. Like I said, they're a little out of place this far north. You can grow them, but you're always going to have a little bit of an issue. They always get knocked back every winter. And of course, when we have one of those really super cold winters, they're going to get a lot of damage. When we have a warm winter, they are going to get very, very little or maybe no damage, but you can still have issues with them. So Kathy sent me a couple pictures, and she didn't say specifically what she was wondering about them, but she sent me this picture right here of something growing on a tree, and that looks like a wax myrtle tree. I can't tell for sure, but you see the big splotches on the trunk, and we get this question a lot of times. That's just a fungus that's growing on the trunk of the tree, and it does not hurt the tree. So they come, if you ever go for a walk in the woods, if you go on a hike, you're going to see these, and you see a lot of times the bright pink or red ones, like you see on the tree trunk here. Some of them are light blue, a lot of them are I'm sorry, let me unmute myself and apologize for the internet being a little unstable today. Let me go back into the PowerPoint here and get up to where I was. There we go. Hopefully it's showing once again, and you see the picture of a tree trunk here with some algae growing on it. It's a combination of algae and a fungus, and this is totally normal. This is not going to hurt your tree. It doesn't kill the tree, doesn't damage it. What happens is if that tree dies, a lot of the things that are growing on the bark of the tree are going to start to decay the tree and break it down. So this is something that you don't have to worry about. It's normal, it's natural. And like I said, if you ever go on a hike out in the woods, you're going to see all the trees out in the woods are going to have these kind of things growing on them. So that's definitely not something to worry about. But she also asked, she has a couple of queen palm trees in her yard here, and they were obviously pruned recently. And she asked, were they pruned correctly or over pruned? And I could tell from just looking at them, they were over pruned. Very important with palm trees. You don't want to cut the branches off until they are totally brown. So a lot of services are going to prune your palm trees, and they tell you that they have to hurricane cut them, and that is not true. That's not healthy for a palm tree. The reason why you keep branches or leaves on a palm tree until they're totally brown is because as the lower leaves die, which is totally natural, they're going to keep moving the nutrients from those leaves up to the new leaves. So if you keep cutting off leaves that are half brown, half green, or even worse, leaves that are totally green, to get the palm more pruned so that you only have to have your service come out once a year, over time, that's going to weaken your palm tree. It's going to damage it. And what it's going to do is you're going to have a much weaker palm tree long term. It's not going to be as healthy. So this service, I could tell from looking at it, they probably cut off too many leaves. So you don't ever want to cut off the green leaves on a palm tree or the ones that are half green, half brown. I know it doesn't look very pretty if you have leaves on your palm tree that are half green and half brown, but you really want to leave them on there until they're almost totally brown and then remove them. That way you're going to have the healthiest palm tree. So unfortunately, a lot of services are just in the habit of cutting off way too many leaves. So it's going to be your responsibility, even if you have to stand out there and tell the guys which leaves to take off. It's your tree, your property, you're paying them. So if you want to tell them cut that leaf off and leave that one on, that's totally your right. That's between you and your service. So here, let me keep admitting people. So I know the last week or two, Edwina sent a picture of a plant in, and she was wondering what plant this is. It's growing in her landscape. And I finally got around to sending that off to the University of Florida Herbarium. And there we go. We got it identified. So University Herbarium is really, really good. I use a free service called the Distance Diagnostic Identification Service. And I think next week we're going to put some information on our chat about that, because it's a free service that anybody can sign up for. And I like it because I'm terrible at plant ID. I can identify a lot of plants, but people will send me pictures and I'm just not sure exactly what they are. So I'm able to, with just the push of a button, send the picture off to the herbarium up at University of Florida. And Mark Frank, who's the director of the herbarium, is an expert identifying every plant in the world. And usually within an hour or two, he gets an answer back to me. If I send pictures, he comes back with an answer. And he said, this is, the common name is going to be shooting star, starflower, or amethyst stars, because with a lot of landscape plants, there's multiple common names. And here's the scientific name, Pseudoranthum laxiflorum, which I'm not, I'm not personally familiar with, but is part of the Incathaceae. That's the shrimp plant family. And Edwina, I'll go ahead and forward you his results, because he did add links to a couple of University of Florida publications that you can look at to get more information on the plant, to find out how to best care for it, when it flowers, how to care for it and make it look even better. So I'll go ahead and forward that information to you. But we did get that plant identified for you. And it is what you thought that it was a shooting star, and that is one of the common names for it. There we go. So if you bang the key hard enough, the pictures advance, I guess. So Liana, I'm not sure exactly who is on right now, but hopefully Liana is in here at the moment. She sent me a few pictures just yesterday about some problems and questions she's having in her vegetable garden. And these are really common problems that we're going to have right now, because as you know, right now is spring. Spring is going to end in about a week or two, I think, and then we shoot straight into summer. And you're going to have a lot of different questions and problems in your vegetable garden. One of them, this is a close-up picture of a pumpkin leaf. And on her leaf, it's a little hard to see from the picture here. It's kind of blown up on my screen. Maybe you can see it a little bit clearer. But there's like a little white squiggly line on the leaf. And what this is a leaf miner. So leaf miners are either species of little flies or moths that lay their eggs on a lot of different plants. Really common to see them on vegetables. You see it on tomatoes if you're growing them. You see it on citrus leaves if you have a citrus tree in your landscape. What happens is the little immature fly or caterpillar is going to be tunneling around in the middle of your leaf. It's generally not something to worry about unless you have a huge number of them. Very common. You see them on a lot of leaves, but it's really not your biggest problem right now if you're trying to grow a pumpkin. What is a worse problem is, and this is on zucchini squash, you are going to start getting fungal diseases. And certain plants are little fungal magnets. Anything in the cucurbit family, like zucchini, yellow squash, cucumbers, cantaloupes, watermelons, if you're trying to grow them, they get a lot of fungal problems. So the leaf here that you see that's turned yellow with the brown spots, not an insect problem, that's a fungus. And you're going to have to spray a fungicide on your vegetables. So be prepared if you're trying to grow zucchini or any other kind of squash or tomatoes, you're going to have fungus problems. You're going to have to get some kind of fungicide that's labeled to be used on vegetables and plan on following the label directions for it and spraying that either once or twice, or maybe as often as every couple weeks, because what happens is when it rains, it gets washed off and you're going to have to reapply it. So that zucchini leaf has a fungus on it. And this zucchini leaf has a fungus on it that's called powdery mildew. Very common, and it gets the little white, powdery looking splotches on the leaves. And these little white you need a fungicide to help protect your zucchini leaves from powdery mildew. And she has a problem with worms in her cucumbers. And this is a problem now when you're trying to grow cucumbers or zucchini or yellow squash, because we have a little moth that's called a pickle worm. And it's going to fly around normally at night. It's going to lay eggs on your cucumbers. And that tiny little worm is a caterpillar. It's going to drill into your cucumber, into your yellow squash, your zucchini. And when you pick it and eat it, you're going to have somebody that looks like this with a little home in the center of your cucumber. So the best way to deal with this is to try to avoid it. If you're trying to grow cucumbers or zucchini or yellow squash, you need to plant them early, very early. Late February is the best time to plant those things, because that way you get them in and up and growing. You're going to get your cucumbers before the pickle worms come to town, because pickle worms always get frozen back during the winter, and they get frozen all the way back to around Miami Homestead. And then in the spring, they emerge and they start moving north, and they show up here in Hernando County right around now, end of April, beginning of May. So you need to try to get your cucumbers and squash planted and growing early, so that hopefully you get a lot of cucumbers and zucchini before the pickle worms come to town. Because once they get here, they're very, very difficult to deal with, and they will lay their eggs and they will tunnel into your cucumbers and squash, and they're very, very difficult to control. So let me take care of our happy husky who's in the background here. The joys of working from home with the whole little crew and family here. So here's another picture that she sent with holes in her cucumber. And this is what pickle worms do. They are little caterpillars, they're moth caterpillars, and they will drill a hole into your cucumber, and they will live and eat inside the cucumber, and then they push the debris out the little hole. So they're usually, if you have them, they're pretty easy to detect. If you look at that cucumber, you're going to see a little hole with debris around it. So unfortunately, that cucumber, sometimes if it's small and just entered your cucumber, you'll be able to trim away the part that the caterpillar is eating, and you'll be able to eat the rest of the cucumber. But chances are this cucumber probably not going to be able to eat that one. It's going to have a big fat caterpillar living in it now. So shriveled cucumbers are another problem. This can happen when the cucumber flower doesn't get pollinated really well, or when it picks up a fungus. So using a fungicide on your cucumbers is going to help protect against a lot of different fungal problems. Like I said, cucumbers are little fungus magnets. They have a lot of fungal problems. So she also put in a couple pictures of her peas. They're starting to look, the leaves are turning tan, brown, shriveling. Okay, with peas, peas are a cool season crop. So peas should be done for the year now. Really, you should plant your peas And I've planted snow peas before, the edible potted ones where you eat the whole snow pea. And you want to plant them around the beginning of September, and they're going to grow and they're going to get big and they're going to get lots and lots of peas all winter long. The problem is when the weather starts to warm up in March, that means it's the end of pea season. So you need to plan on your peas being done and not giving you any more peas by around March. So unfortunately, this time of year, your peas are done for the year. This guy needs to basically take a long nap in your compost pile, which would be a really good spot for it. But pea season is done with it. That's why it's starting to look so bad, because peas cannot tolerate the strong sun, the heat, the humidity, and things like that that start to really set in this time of year. So beans, this is a good time of year to have your green beans, pole beans, yellow beans, one of my favorites growing. But beans can get fungal problems also. This is probably bean leaf rust, which is really, really common on bean leaves. And this is a touch of maybe Cercospora or some other kind of fungus on the leaves. So beans are another plant that maybe if you have them growing, they don't have any fungal problems right now, but they do get them. So if you start to see spots on the bean leaves, you're going to have to spray with the fungicide to help protect the new bean leaves that are coming out and the flowers and the little teeny tiny beans. So I think that's all I have from all this week's pictures. And you see, we got quite a few of them, but I want to make quick mention of our next Zoom class is coming up this coming Tuesday, May 12th. And this is going to be one of our evening classes. So we do one evening Zoom and Facebook Live class. It's going to be simulcast on both, if the technology and the internet all come together and work correctly for it. So that's going to be this coming Tuesday, May 12th at 6:30 in the evening. And I'm going to be with one of my master gardeners, and she's going to be helping me teach a class with some new ideas in edible gardening. So just some new things that you can grow that you might not have thought of. I'm going to include some things, some unusual things you can plant and grow that love the heat and humidity in Florida summers, because obviously we've talked about a lot of things that don't grow well in the heat of summer. There are some really unusual things that do that maybe you've never thought of growing before that you might want to try. So be sure to tune in Tuesday evening. If you go to our Facebook page, we have the Zoom link there if you'd like to join by Zoom, or if you just want to go to our Facebook page, hopefully at 6:30 p.m., boom, our Facebook Live will be magically appearing on the Facebook page, and you can watch us that way also. And the nice thing with this is the Facebook Live feed. If you're not able to join us at 6:30, if you're busy or you're in the middle of cooking dinner, you can watch it afterwards, because Facebook saves that as a video, and then whenever you want afterwards, you can go and tune in and watch it. So I think that's about all I had. With that, let me go ahead and try to get out of sharing there and go back into the questions. And Teresa said my voice was going in and out. Sorry for that. If you can hear me at the moment, it's because of our wonderful internet that we have problems with sometimes. So sorry, technical problems. I need one of those little screen things that'll show up when, I'm off the internet. Johanna asked if cucumbers attract all that, should they be planted by themselves, or what can we plant close to help or to better use the raised beds? With cucumbers, there's a few things, if you really want to grow them, a few things that you should do or keep in mind. Number one, like I mentioned earlier, is you want to plant them really, really early. The earlier you can plant them, the better you're going to be able to avoid humidity, afternoon rains, heat, diseases, insect problems. So try to plant them late February, early March. Hopefully we won't have a late freeze, because they don't take freezes well. Freezes will kill them. But the earlier you can get them in, the better. Plan on using a fungicide on them, because they will need it at some point. when you're looking at what varieties of cucumbers to plant, try to pick varieties that are short season. So if you look at the packet or the description of that variety in an online seed catalog, it's going to tell you how many days it is from planting them to getting the cucumbers. Shorter time period is better. They're going to come up faster, grow faster. You're going to actually get cucumbers. And picking varieties that are disease resistant would be really good also. So that's a really good idea. Other than that, cucumbers can be really tough to grow. Commercial people have a lot of different insecticides and fungicides available to them that homeowners don't, because it's for commercial people only. They have to have a special license to be able to use them. So homeowners growing cucumbers is a challenge. It's one of your more difficult things to grow. But if you get them in early and you pick the right varieties, you can do it. You can be successful. Liana asks, whose pictures, all the vegetable pictures I showed, those were hers. So I'm glad she's on here to see them. Should we trim the dead or dying leaves on the fungus plants? That's a very good question. And yes, you should. You should trim off those dying leaves and very carefully take them and throw them in the trash can. Because the problem is those spotted leaves have fungal spores all over them. And if you leave them in the garden just laying around, when it rains, the raindrops are going to splash those fungal spores up on the healthy leaves, and now they're going to have a disease also. So sanitation is very important. Removing those dead leaves, taking them very carefully, throwing them in the trash can, sanitizing your clippers if you're using scissors or any kind of clippers to take the leaves off, spraying them with alcohol. Rubbing alcohol works just fine. It dries right away, won't damage the metal. So spraying your clippers with alcohol helps to stop you from spreading a disease from plant to plant to plant. So Kathy asked, my sweet gum, okay, we're off on the trees now. Sweet gum has a lot of surface roots. Can I put soil on top without affecting the tree?
Kathy.
I'll let Lily take care of this one so I can get a drink. Lily, we'll let you take this one.
Maybe Kathy knows the answer to this. Well, I'm sure Dr. Lister would agree with me. Trees, it's okay to have surface roots. If you bury the roots, you're going to, the tree is going to suffer from it. So if there's some roots up there growing on the ground, I mean, that's just what some trees do. Most sweet gum trees, I used to say I've never seen anyone purposefully plant a sweet gum tree. There just happened to be there when the house was built or something. And then spent a little bit of time in a community in on 41, which is a very low-lying, moist area. And I saw it with their new houses. They were planting sweet gums in the backyard. It kind of blew me away. Then I decided, well, they probably have to have a native tree, and this area is very wet. So that's why they chose those. And I don't know, maybe they're all male, so they don't have the, what my nephew used to call the algae balls, the seed pods. But back to Kathy's question, Bill, I would think that you never really want to cover up tree roots. Is that correct?
That's correct. You could add a little bit, and I'm talking an inch or two of soil to the top, but anything more, trees use all those surface roots or the roots that are just a little bit below the surface to breathe through. So if you go and add a foot of soil on top of the tree, or plant a new tree that maybe you bought from a nursery in your yard and you planted too deep, it will kill the tree in about 3 years. Mm-hmm. So trees go on a really slow calendar and time schedule, but it will damage and kill the tree. It will take some time to do it. So I know those surface roots, and especially the big ones, a lot of times your lawnmower is going to be hitting the roots with the blades, so that's a problem. Or if you try to weed eat around them, your weed eater is going to be tearing them up. But you really want to leave those surface roots as close to the surface as you can. That's going to be the best for the tree's health long term.
Right.
Okay, Susan asked, were you able to diagnose the problems with the avocado and guava trees? I did. I don't know if I was chopping in and out at that moment or not. Maybe I was. But basically, avocado and guava, and it depends on what variety of guava it is. There's a couple different kinds. There's one that they grow commercially down in Homestead, and that variety is going to get freeze damage very easily. There's other types of guavas that take cold weather very well, so they're not going to get as badly damaged. But what happens to them is they get knocked back and damaged, and if nothing else, they go on vacation over the winter, they stop growing, the old leaves start to look really ratty. So what you need to do is get the avocado and guava hopefully up and growing and making new leaves for this spring and summer. You're probably going to have to spray a fungicide on them because at least with the avocado, it looked like there was an obvious fungal problem on it. The guava tree, if the picture of the lanky tree with very few leaves on it was the guava, you're going to need to look through that within about a month or so and determine if there's any really dead branches on it and totally trim them back and hopefully get the rest to grow and flush out with new leaves. It should be okay, but both are going to need some cold weather protection in the winter to help keep them from getting freeze damaged. And that all depends on if we get really bad cold weather in the winter or we have a warm winter. There are some winters where it stays warm pretty much all winter. We have very few problems with things being damaged, and maybe your guava and avocado will keep growing to a certain extent over the winter. But the problems that I saw was a touch of fungal disease, so it needs a fungicide, and then the guava is definitely going to need some pruning back to remove any dead stuff. Because dead branches don't come back to life. They're never going to get any better. You need to take them off. Liana asks, how often do you apply fungicide? If that's for your vegetables, if it starts raining, possibly every week, probably every 2 weeks, but definitely at least once. Because what a fungicide does is it never fixes the damaged leaves. So the leaves you showed of the bean plants with the spots and the zucchini leaf that looked really bad, they're never going to get any better. What a fungicide does is it protects the brand new little leaves coming out and stops them from getting the fungus, and it's going to keep them healthy. The only problem is fungicides get washed off very easily with either overhead irrigation or rainfall. So for vegetables right now, every 1 to 2 weeks, you're going to have to spray a fungicide. And the things that are going to get problems the worst right now, cucumbers, zucchini, yellow squash, beans, possibly, tomatoes, probably. When tomatoes start to get those deep spots, they need an herb or a fungicide also. So fungicides every 1 to 2 weeks. Lori is asking, are there any actual benefits to the homemade concoctions of baking soda or hydrogen peroxide in treating fungus on plant leaves? That's a very good question, and I see that on Facebook a lot. You know,
what was his name, Bill? Remember Jim Baker?
yeah, oh yeah, yeah. Well, he liked to spray beer and mostly beer all over. Beer and what else did he use?
Urine. He used urine all the time too.
Yeah, we're not. I'm not going to recommend using any kind of urine in the garden. We don't want to get into exactly why, but for food safety reasons and a lot of other reasons, we don't want to go there. Ammonia. He used to spray a lot of ammonia in the yard and a lot of beer. The ammonia he was spraying because ammonia is a really basic form of nitrogen. Ammonia has nitrogen in it, but it is a really, really harsh way to give your plant nitrogen fertilizer. So ammonia is the harshest way to fertilize your plants. I don't recommend that. Beer is obviously very high in carbohydrates. So soil bacteria, good fungi, things like that are going to like the beer. Might make your yard smell a little funny. Seems like a
waste of beer, doesn't it?
What's that?
Seems like a waste of good beer.
It really does. Yeah, you don't want to use the good beer on that. You want to use maybe the flat or stale beer in your yard. That doesn't hurt anything. So for the one leaf that had the whitish spots on it that had powdery mildew, You can use baking soda and water, and baking soda will help protect your leaves from powdery mildew, because what happens is it raises the pH on the leaf surface. And baking soda is not dangerous for you to use, and it's not really damaging to your plants also. It's not very effective, but it doesn't hurt anything. So some of these homemade concoctions actually do work. It's just not the most effective solution for the problem. So baking soda is not going to hurt anything. Hydrogen peroxide, on the other hand, can be very harsh on leaves. So hydrogen peroxide would probably damage the leaves. So obviously you don't want your solution to be worse than the initial problem. So a lot of these homemade concoctions are not really backed by research, and even the research they've done on them have found that maybe it helps a little bit, but it's definitely not the most effective solution for the problem. So Susan said, thank you. The guavas have looked unhappy since it was transplanted a few months ago. Yeah, that can happen. So right now is a very important time of year to fertilize lightly. Don't go out there and try to kickstart it into growing and dump a lot of fertilizer on it, but fertilize it lightly. Make sure that you're watering correctly. So if it's in a container, don't overwater it. But if it's in the ground, make sure that it gets watered regularly. And hopefully it'll get settled in, the roots will spread, and it'll start to flush out with some new growth. And then you could take it from there. Maybe you might have to protect the new growth with application of fungicide, but hopefully the tree will start to recover and start to grow. James asked, coffee grounds are very acidic, but is it safe to use on acid-loving plants like Ixora? Coffee grounds are a very good thing to add to the soil. They're very good in a compost bin or a compost pile. You can add them directly to the surface of the soil, and they do break down pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. So what you're doing is you're kind of making compost on the soil, on the surface of the soil. Coffee grounds are acidic, but to actually change the pH of the soil, you have to add literally truckloads of coffee grounds to have that effect. So a reasonable amount of coffee grounds is not going to have a huge effect on the soil pH. Ixora likes acidic soil. So using coffee grounds around Ixora is not going to hurt anything. But if you're worried about adding coffee grounds because they're acidic and you might throw your soil pH off, unless you drink more coffee than I do every day, you're not going to have so many grounds that you're going to have a really huge effect on the soil pH. So coffee grounds, very good to use. Liana said, you guys are awesome. Thank you very much. Thank you, Lily, for being such a great co-host here. And thank you to our internet company. Who do we get internet from? Nora? Spectrum. Okay, thank you, Spectrum, for such choppy internet this morning. Hopefully you'll get it better later on today. I have another Zoom and Facebook Live to go to as soon as we're done here.
And when we were talking about compost, you might want to invite them to your Facebook group and that compost workshop.
Yes, let me make a very quick mention of that. We have a little Facebook Live presentation coming on in just a little bit at 11:30 this morning that is going to be on our Facebook group. So if you visit our Hernando County, University of Florida Extension Hernando County Facebook page, you will see that we also have a private Facebook group for gardeners. So hopefully some of you, and I know some of you are members of the group, if the rest of you have any questions about, well, I'd like to join that Facebook group and watch that Facebook Live today because you have to be a member to watch it, go ahead and shoot me an email. Go ahead and call Teresa. Teresa, if you're still on here, if you want to put down your the office phone number in the chat, go ahead and give Teresa a call. We could talk you through joining the Facebook private gardening group, and you can get in and watch our Facebook Live at 11:30. We're going to be talking about composting for vegetable gardeners. So even though composting is great for no matter what you grow, it could be ixoras, roses, um, sweet gum trees. It could be any kind of landscape plants, but making compost is especially good for your vegetable garden, the kind of thing that you really want to be doing on a regular basis if you're going to want to have a very healthy vegetable garden. We're going to cover all that starting at 11:30 through my choppy Spectrum internet, using Zoom to show the PowerPoint slides into Facebook Live. So the technology gets a little complicated, but we'll be there at 11:30 if anybody wants to join us for that. Kathy said, thank you, the palms were not hers. So, okay, Kathy, we don't want to blame you for the condition of the palm trees, but unfortunately, services tend to over prune palms. So not all services do. I know some that do a very, very good job of only removing totally dead leaves. And they even explain that to homeowners. And some homeowners go out there and go, well, trim all the leaves off down to just one. That way I can wait a whole year before I have to pay you guys to come back because you're, not free or cheap. That's terrible. From a plant health perspective for palm trees, that is awful for the long-term health of your palm. So some services do a very good job. Other ones are more than happy to come and just whack almost every leaf off, and they think they're doing just a fine job when in reality they're not.
Remember this, Bill? 9 o'clock
Yes.
and 2 o'clock.
Okay, we have Lilly acting out that you want to trim a palm tree so the leaves go from about the 9 o'clock position to 3 o'clock. The lower ones are hanging down and pointing down and are totally brown. They're fine to remove. Or you could just leave them on. They're going to come down on their own when they're ready, all in due time. And as long as there's nothing right below the palm tree that could be damaged, like a pool screening, a grill, a person, something like that, it's fine to leave those leaves on a palm. It does not hurt them. But if you're trying to clean your palm up to make it look good for your homeowners association and your neighbors, you want to leave the leaves from about the 9 o'clock to 3 o'clock position and only take off the totally dead ones.
But don't those brown leaves have roaches, Bill? I hear that a lot.
In a healthy palm tree out in nature, there's a lot of things that live in it and make use of palms. Our native cabbage palm flowers and gets berries that are eaten by a lot of different animals. For tall palms like cabbage palms and Washingtonia palms, when the leaves die, the lower leaves die and turn brown and they hang down, they form what's called a skirt. And that's very important for wildlife also. There are things that live up there. It could be bats, it could be snakes. They're all eating each other and interacting with each other. So for the well-being of wildlife, palm trees are very, very important for them to live in, eat the berries. Many other palms, if anybody has a saw palmetto or palmetto, animals eat the berries off of them, very important food source. Black bears eat the berries off of them. Don't worry, if you have a palmetto and a flowers, you get berries, you're not attracting bears. We don't have too many of them in Hernando County. For anybody listening to us in Seminole County, though, you guys have a lot of bears over there. I used to live over there. But still feeding the, having wild, plants out there to help feed the wildlife is a component of Florida-friendly landscaping and very important also. So don't think that you have to go out there and trim those leaves off your palm. Do like me and let them go. And I'm, usually late and behind trying to go out there and get them cleaned up. It's not going to hurt the palm. So Jen asked, will the compost talk be recorded? Yes, I'm going to record that on Zoom and I'm going to turn that into a video. And as soon as I get a chance to, that's going to be shared on our Facebook page. It's going to be shared on the Facebook group. I'm also going to start sending out links to all those different recorded things to everybody on our monthly or really bi-monthly newsletter list. So yes, we're going to start recording those and make them freely available for people who aren't free to watch them live. Johanna asked, and we're going to make this the last question because we need to wrap it up here, but Johanna asked our last question from the group, what can I use ashes for? That's a very good question, and we get this when we're talking about composting a lot. Wood, clean wood ashes are fine to put in your compost bin, but you need to keep it in moderation. So for anybody who has a fire pit or has campfires in their backyard, if what you're using is just tree wood or clean wood, if you take the ashes from that and throw small amounts in your compost pile, that's great because ashes are a very valuable source of potassium. But you don't want to throw too many wood ashes in there, and you don't want to put them directly in your garden because they're also very, very high pH, and they can be, in the raw form, can be damaging to plants and plant roots. So as for anybody who's going to tune in for our composting class is going to hear over and over, when you're looking at ingredients to put in, you need to keep it in moderation. So some wood ashes are just fine in a compost pile. A ton of wood ashes or pure wood ashes is a little bit too much. Same thing goes really with anything. Coffee grounds are great in your compost bin, but a compost bin filled totally with coffee grounds, I'm not sure what that would do. They would compost eventually, probably get a little nasty and smell a little funny for a bit, but that would probably, the finished compost would come out very acidic, and that might be an issue too. So
That's why you put the filters in there too.
You put what?
You put the coffee filters in there too. See, that balances it out.
That does help to balance it out. So the coffee filters you can throw in the compost pile also. So when it comes to composting, try to do everything in moderation. But yeah, you can throw wood ashes in there. You can throw coffee grounds in there. They're all fine for composting.
But not your picnic table that you burned. No treated wood or anything.
Yeah, if you burned, let's say, old treated pallets, a treated picnic table, something like that, and you know it was treated wood, that's probably not the best choice to put in a compost pile. It may be safe, but you probably want to avoid any treated wood where you know it was treated. So for any other questions about composting, you can catch up with me in about 40 minutes here, and hopefully I'll see all you guys on that presentation also. Hopefully the internet will be a little bit stronger for that. And I think that's about all I had. Lily, do you have any other comments, questions?
Well, we just look at our Facebook pages. We've got lots of classes coming up aside from your compost one. I think your boss, Jim Davis, has one tomorrow on invasive frogs and toads. Is that what it is?
I'm not sure.
Yeah. And next Wednesday, my Facebook Live at 10 o'clock will be Florida friendly and dog friendly yards. Maybe something you need to watch, Dr. Lester.
I'll bring my dog here and we can all watch it, I guess. Sometimes you'll see them wandering around in the background behind me here.
Yes, yes. And tomorrow, Dr. Lester and I are having a class mainly geared for kids about who likes bugs, but we do have adults signed up as well. But that cutoff is going to be in like an hour. It's going to be cut off and no more registration. So you have to go to my Facebook page like now and find out how to sign up for that. It's called Who Likes Bugs, and it's at 10 o'clock tomorrow. We've got all kind of great things going on. So.
We really do. It's hard for me to keep straight what I'm teaching, let alone what all the rest of us are doing between our county director, Jim Davis. He's doing a lot of really popular presentations on different wildlife. So
he's
my best suggestion.
He's got a critter series going on.
Mm-hmm. So our best suggestion is just follow us on Facebook because we have everything listed on there. All the links, all the information, whether it's on Zoom, Facebook Live, both, whichever. When I record them and finish processing them, I just put them back on Facebook. So if you keep checking our Facebook all the time and tell your friends about it and like us and comment on our posts, that'll keep you right on top of everything we have going on.
Yep. We'll be, at least I'll be back next Thursday, right, for this.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, somebody will be here next Thursday, so I might have to have a surprise moderator come in for next Thursday, but that's okay. Somebody will be here, and if nothing else, Lily will be back next Thursday. So
Yes, and continue to send Bill your questions and your pictures. And if you can't make it next Thursday, he'll forward them to me, and we will address them.
sure, keep sending your pictures, keep sending your questions, save the questions for the live chat here. And like I said, we really like to put them together and share it with everybody so that everybody can learn from everybody else's problems. Not blaming anybody specifically for the palm trees, but just in general.
Yes.
Okay, well, thank you very much, everybody. I had a great time. Hopefully Lily had a great time and you guys did too.
Always.
Keep those great, happy comments coming in, and we will see you again next week. Thank you, and stay safe out there.